International Maritime Organization adopted a decarbonization goal for shipping industry, and now we are discussing individual measures that will be binding on individual ships to cut their emissions. One of the options, as you mentioned, is speed limits. Speed limits is a very effective and simple measure. By cutting ship speed limits by 30%, we can save as much CO2 as 200 million tons. And that is equivalent to total national emissions of an industrialized country like the Netherlands. It's a very simple measure. It can be enforced simply because every ship is connected to satellite. We can see their speed in lifetime. And this would not only reduce emissions, but this would also reduce their energy consumption, making transition to decarbonized fuels like hydrogen and ammonia much easier.
You talked about other options, and there are divisions over whether this is the best way forward, because some people are saying that such a move would actually stifle innovation.
There are some concerns about the ship's speed limit might not be the best option for all ship types. And the proposals on the table are trying to take this into account, making sure that this is not a straitjacket for all ship types. But in terms of emissions, speed limits will have positive impact on efficient and non-efficient ships alike. It's not a long-term measure. We will not be able to decarbonize shipping industry entirely solely based on speed limits, but this is an immediate provisional option that we can apply to save carbon budget immediately, because with speed limits, we don't need to change ships, we don't need to change their fuels, and we don't need to change the infrastructure. It can be applied today, and it would be very effective.
What about the impact, though, on goods that can't stay at sea for too long, for instance, like fresh fruit?
The kind of speed limits that is on the table at the moment, it is annual average, which means that ships can speed up in certain seasons and slow down in other seasons to make sure the annual average is below a certain threshold. And if we look at, as you mentioned, fresh fruit exports, they're very seasonal. They're usually a couple of months in a year, usually from South America from January until April. So ship speeds can be maintained at current levels during the fruit export seasons and reduced in other seasons to make sure that the annual average is below the speed limits.